Hello and good morning from Maryland Zone 7A. I'm Brittany from By Brittany Goldwyn. I post videos about plants and projects, and it is June 12th in Maryland Zone 7A, which means it is time for my June garden tour. Now, I am pretty sure that May is my busiest month when it comes to gardening prep. So if you watched my May garden tour, you will probably notice that a lot has changed between May and June. I finished all of my mulching, I have most of my warm weather crops in, and I am about to pull out my cooler weather stuff. So let's take a look at the raised beds area first, and then we will work our way around the yard. So I am starting filming on my patio here. When you walk off the patio, you will see we come right to my raised beds area. Up here, these two beds were the first ones that we put in when we moved into this house. These get the least amount of sun. They all get great sun, but they have a little bit of shade, as you can see from the house here. And then when I grow things up this cattle panel trellis, that also provides some shade as well. So I am planning to grow bell peppers in this bed right here. I actually have them in there right now. It's just hard to see them because everything else is growing. This right here on the end is actually a very tall sunflower that seeded itself, and I decided to just leave it because I love having sunflowers all around the garden. And this is also a really good example of nature finding a way where it is happiest. I planted this seed here in the ground because I like having a sunflower up here on the corner, and you can see, even though I planted this really early, it is very small compared to the one that decided it was happy where it fell and just started growing. I have ignored this, and it is by far my most mature sunflower. So take from that what you will about nature and things growing the best in the best situations. Over here, we've got sugar snap peas. I think I am up to about 6 or 7 pounds of sugar snap peas harvested. These are on their way out. I've noticed some starting signs of powdery mildew on some of these. You can see over here, which is just something that happens when they are not experiencing ideal airflow. And as you can see, I did not thin out these plants. I just let them go kind of wild. So there isn't as much airflow as there probably should be, but that is okay because the plants are still producing. I may pull these out today just because it is getting a little crowded in this bed for some of the stuff I have planted below it, which again, I mentioned are bell pepper plants. And then I also have dill interspersed in here. I have some bush beans in here. And then of course I have my fava beans, which I actually just finished filming a separate video on growing fava beans and why it makes a really good cooler season crop. It is excellent for cold hardiness, so you can start growing it very, very early in the season, and it is a wonderful nitrogen fixer for your soil. I grow it primarily for those reasons, but you can also harvest and eat the fava beans. When they're young, you can harvest them and eat them in their pods. When they get a little bit more mature, you can take the beans out and, stir fry them, do whatever you want with them. I have harvested one time from my plants, my fava bean plants, and I threw all of the shelled beans into a stir fry, and it was really good. I will probably do the same thing when I chop down these plants. And when I chop them down, I will just chop them down to the soil line, compost everything above the soil, and leave probably like this much of a stem above the soil line, and then the roots in the soil to just decompose in place. I redid this whole area right up by the house last fall to make sure it was all perennials that would come back year after year. I've had various things here over the year, and I just kind of got tired of replanting every year. So everything up here is perennial. I have the yarrow in the middle. I have some thyme, rosemary, sage, hyacinths for the early season blooms that I have yet to chop down yet because the foliage has not completely yellowed. And then the only annuals I have up here are a zinnia that I popped in, but long term there will be a coneflower here, which will get quite large in a couple years. And then of course a sunflower. I love flanking the sides of the sunroom exterior here with large sunflowers. I've got all of my perennial ground covers that are really taking over and helping out a lot with weed suppression and protecting the soil, attracting our beneficial pollinators, all those things that we love for holistic pest control. You can see over here, this is honestly probably the tallest I've ever grown sugar snap peas. I'm almost 6 feet tall, and when I stand next to it, I think these have to be at least 10 feet tall, which is wild to me. I've never grown sugar snap peas this tall. So I think that our extended cooler season this spring did help with that, since this is a cooler weather crop. But that's why it's been so hard to pull these, because they have just been doing so great. And you can see all the way up here on the new growth, they are still producing some really gorgeous pods. So I have told myself that I will leave these plants in until the warmer weather stuff I have below them is not growing or being harmed by the fact that they're still in the bed, or that I'm picking under like 6 ounces of sugar snap peas a day, because I am weighing them this year because I want to know exactly how much I'm growing. Underneath this jungle mess here of sugar snap peas and fava beans, I've also got some spinach plants that I am letting go to seed. This is a winter giant spinach that I'm letting go to seed because I want to be saving more and more of my own seeds to share with others and use for myself next fall and next spring. So I am letting this one take up a little bit of room in this bed until it gets to the point where I can harvest the seeds and then chop it down. Now, this is a winter giant spinach. I've already finished up harvesting the seeds from my Bloomsdale spinach. So if you're interested in saving spinach seeds, it's super easy. I just published a video all about it, quick and easy video showing exactly the step-by-step of where to look for the seeds and what to do with them. My next seed video I'm going to be doing is on arugula seeds. I have let all of my arugula flower and go to seed here. And just as a little teaser for that video, if your plant was pollinated, it will form these seed pods on these stems, and this is where the seeds come from. Now, arugula seeds are super tiny, so it's a little bit different from spinach, where spinach you pick them directly off the stems, whereas arugula, these little pods will be full of tiny seeds. So I will do a separate video all about that when the time comes. I'm just letting these get a little bit more mature before I snip off these stems to dry them. On the other side of this bed, we've got, as you can see, really crazy, out of control sugar snap peas. But below that, I've got some arugula that I seeded a little bit later than the ones I just showed that are already going to seed. So these I'm still able to pick and eat from. And there is a little beetle doing her job, eating aphids, which, you know, if you see a ladybug on any of your greens, it probably means they're putting in some good work for you. And behind the arugula here, if you can see it, is cucumbers. So this is a party time hybrid cucumber. It is the only type of cucumber I grow. I generally grow mostly heirloom seeds because I like to be able to save the seeds. But for cucumbers, I grew this variety a couple years ago and I really liked it. It's almost completely seedless. You don't have to peel them. They're not spiny at all. They're generally pretty small. I just really like to be able to chop them up and eat them, and they're excellent for pickling. So that is why I grow those every year. I have 2 of those plants in here. And then also in here, I have some spring onions that are flowering, which again, I am letting these flower so I can save some of these seeds. I separated a lot of these spring onions in the spring to get more plants. Spring onions are a biennial plant, so if you plant them 1 year, they will not complete their life cycle that first year. They will take 2 years to complete their life cycle and mature and flower and go to seed. So I will be continuing to snip off of all of these plants that are still snippable, but then there are these thicker, meatier stalks on these green onions that are flowering that I will harvest my seeds from. And I mentioned aphids. I do want to point out something that is a sign of aphids. Sometimes aphids are hard to see, but if you can make out these like little white, fluffy looking things. When I originally saw these on some of my plants, I thought they were a bug itself. But after researching this online about what exactly they were, I learned that they are something that aphids shed when they are going through their life cycle. So by the time you see the little green aphids on your plants, they have already shed this little like white coating thing. I'm not sure what the technical name is for it, honestly. But those are a sign that you have aphids crawling on your plant. Now, I would not recommend doing anything, especially if you are outdoors. You will hopefully be able to attract things like ladybugs and other aphid exterminators to do the job for you. And honestly, I don't freak out about a couple aphids. You could just wash them off before you eat things. But since I recently learned that that is a sign of aphids, I wanted to pass that on because for the longest time, I had no idea what those little white feathery things were. And before we move on to the rest of the beds, I wanted to highlight this new post that we put in. So this is just a regular fence post that I stained, and it is set in concrete in the ground. And the reason we put this fence post up is because the wonderful folks at Vego Garden sent me this retractable hose reel. They did gift this to me. I was super excited to get this because if there's one thing I hate, it's a hose jumble all over the ground. I would always get so irritated with myself trying to untangle the long hose and deal with that. So you can see here that this is bolted into the fence post. This itself is pretty heavy, but it really just sits down onto this piece here. So if I had the camera down, I could pick this part up and take it off with my two hands. Now, like I mentioned, we did dig a large hole for this and set it in some quick setting concrete so that this would be super stable, because this is something that you need a really, really stable post for. So my recommendation is if you are getting this retractable hose reel, which I do highly recommend, I'll show you guys how well it works in a second here. You need it to be in something super secure. And since I wanted our hose reel to be out here, not up against our house where the water is, we run a hose all the way out here so we can have it feed all of our different irrigation tubes here. And then this one right here is the actual hose. So this goes up into the back of the hose reel, and that's the only cord or the only tube that we have to deal with. Otherwise, everything stays retracted within the hose reel. This hose reel is also really cool because once you mount it, you can move it back and forth here. So it has a lot of mobility for us to use it in all different areas of the garden. It doesn't just stay still where you mount it. So that makes it really easy. If I want to pull this out and then walk behind me to water my raised beds, or walk over here to water my in-ground garden beds. Now I'll show you when I pull it out here, it can just automatically pull to the side. This also helps me to protect a lot of my plants from having the hose fall on them when I'm pulling it out to water something far away. Now, we have irrigation in all of our beds here, so I generally am not watering these with a hose, but if we do have a serious dry spell, I like to give them a good thorough soaking like the rain would. So I'm gonna get a good pull out here to show you guys exactly how tidy this stays. So I can pull this up and then I can drop it down and continue watering and not have to worry about picking the hose up and lugging it and throwing it over plants so I'm not crushing them, because I have crushed many plants in my day. When I am done with it, all I do is pull once, and that's it. It is a dream. I'm telling you, I love this hose reel so much. One of my friends actually mentioned to me last year when this first came out, or the year before, when she saw that I had Vego beds from the same company, you have to get the hose reel, it's amazing. So, you know, it wasn't really a priority for a while, but when they reached out to me and asked if I was interested in reviewing the hose reel, I said, absolutely, please. My friend loves this. I really want to try it. So 10 out of 10, definitely recommend. And I will obviously let you guys know how this holds up with heavy use around our yard in the future, because it is something that, you know, if the parts were to break, it would be really difficult for me to fix this. But all of the reviews for this are really awesome. So I am really looking forward to seeing how this holds up over the summer. 10 out of 10 recommend. And since we put the post in for the retractable hose reel, I decided I can't just put a post in. So I mounted one of my little pot clips here, which you can see, you can just securely hang terracotta pots with this size lip or a little bit smaller. And I have put catnip in here because I don't want catnip to be spreading in the garden since it is a true mint and it is very aggressive. Down here I also have some scarlet runner beans that I am planning to grow up this pole just to maximize the space and have it look really nice. And longer term I have put in a passionflower vine, which will probably not take off this year, but next year that will be what really steals the show on this. I'll probably have to mount some sort of trellis like I have done on the corresponding pole on this side, which has my gold flame honeysuckle vine, which I moved from the back of the yard up here. I really love the blooms on this, and longer term I'm hoping it will just grow up and kind of take over this little trellis that I put up on the post, and then I'm going to run a piece of taut wire between the two to have the honeysuckle vine kind of creep over the top of this elevated bed. So we'll talk about the elevated bed in a minute. I want to finish talking about the raised garden beds first. Over here, we have some cherry pole tomatoes. These are really taking off with the last couple of super warm days we've had. I am trying a new method of growing my cherry pole tomatoes this year. I am going to try to keep them pruned down to a single stem and take off all of the suckers, tying them up on this post as they grow. So true pole tomatoes here. Let's see if I can show you guys a sucker. I just pruned most of these the other day, so there might not, okay, here's a sucker. So anything that grows here, I will pull off. Up here, pull off. And that will ensure I only have one main growth stem on these that I can keep tied up to the pole as it grows. Now, I am really looking forward to seeing how insane these look when they climb to the top of the pole and then just start spilling over, because these bamboo stakes are super tall. I am hoping that they are secure enough and that I don't have to put in some sort of further stabilization. They do go all the way down in the bed and a little bit down into the ground, so they should be pretty secure, but we will definitely be monitoring this with some of the storms that we get, some of the crazy thunderstorms we get here in Maryland. Now, next to that, I have some smaller tomatoes. These are Roma tomatoes and they are determinate, so I just have some cages on here to help them grow up. I have 6 plants in this bed, and then just some random things around them, marigolds, some more arugula, basil, because that's an awesome thing to grow with your tomatoes for integrated pest management and to help ward off some of those pests. And then I have my sorrel here, which I love adding to salads. That is a perennial, so it comes back year after year. And then this view of this side of the raised garden bed area, you can see a little bit more of the pollinator ground covers I have. This catmint can be kind of annoying after a couple years. It gets kind of big and floppy, but it is definitely worth it for all of the pollinators that it attracts. I popped a bunch of zinnias in around here too, and some petunias just to fill out with some color and help with some ground cover. And then these 3 beds back here look pretty bare right now because I've just planted them. I just planted this squash plant in here, and it looks like we have our first plant growing. This is a smooth criminal hybrid squash. So I generally do not grow squash because I don't like high maintenance plants at all. And squash can be a really high maintenance plant with squash bugs, with squash vine borers, and just dealing with those. But I saw this vertical squash which grows up and out, and all of the squash grows out of the main stalk, so you don't need like a large space for it to ramble. And I decided, let's give it a try. This might make it easier for monitoring for pests too. So I have one of those plants here with some of my nasturtiums, some more petunias and marigolds and whatnot. This nasturtium is really beautiful. I love how this one has filled out so much quicker than the others. And then I threw a second smooth criminal squash in this bed as well. I figure if they don't work out and they die off, I can just have these two be my beds that I plant in August for my cooler season crops if the squash bugs get to them before then. And finally, we have a big old mess over here in this bed of sugar snap peas that I have not pulled out yet. This bed will be all bell peppers once the sugar snap peas are out. They are technically in there under the sugar snap peas right now. They are growing slowly, but I really do need to remove these sugar snap peas so that they can have a little bit more space to grow and enjoy themselves. And then the very last raised bed to show you guys is this brand new one we put in this year. This is the bed that I featured in the video I did on how to sustainably and affordably fill raised beds. I have an assortment of things back here. I've got some of my extra Roma tomato plants, and these were not looking so hot when I planted them, so we'll see how they rebound as things progress. But these were kind of like my tier 2 plants, not the best ones. And since I had some extra room in here, I threw in some of these acorn squash seeds here. I will not keep both of these plants. I'm probably gonna pull that one and then have the plant trellis up over my in-bed worm composting bin that I made, that I also have a video on making. And then over here, I just have a bunch of alyssum and baby eggplants, which I really, really love eggplants. So I'm excited to have 6 plants in here this year for hopefully a really steady supply of eggplant. And then I have a tiny bit of space over here that I think I'm going to pop another pepper plant in here because I have another one, and then maybe try and fit in like one more over here because I picked up some hot pepper plants from our master gardener meeting last night at our little plant swap, and I would like to try my hand at making my own cayenne crushed pepper this year, so I have a cayenne pepper plant. So I would say the raised bed area is looking really, really good. I'm super happy with how everything is looking so far. I can't believe it's only mid-June and we've already gotten so much out of this garden because we started so much earlier than this year than we have in the past. So now that we're finished this area, I'm gonna loop around here and we're gonna talk a little bit about what's in our in-ground area. Well, over here up against the fence, we have a really cool area that we weren't planning to put in last year, but when we dug out the pond, we needed a place to put all of the extra pond dirt that we dug out to make room for the form. So we made a mound over here, and I did grow in it last year. We grew watermelons, which I'm growing again this year. But this year I cleaned up this area by edging it out with these extra stones we had from our front yard lawn conversion project, which I'm also working on a video on, but that was a huge project, so it's taking a lot of time. I am growing seedless watermelon on here again, and I popped in some perennials. I have some black-eyed Susan and some coneflower babies in here that I split off from other plants in my yard, some parsley, some zinnias, just all sorts of random things in here. And then this right here is something I'm really excited about. This is a hibiscus plant, but it's a tropical hibiscus. It is not a hardy hibiscus for where I'm at in zone 7. And this one produces these gorgeous deep red edible calyxes after it flowers. And what you can do is dry them and use them for a really tart tea that I love. So I buy these dried hibiscus. I buy them online, so I figured why not just get a pack of seeds for like $2. I bought them on Etsy and see if I can grow and dehydrate some myself this year because they are not super cheap to buy, and I drink so much of this hibiscus tea. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out this year. Also over here, I have put all of my extra vegetable starts. So I really wanted to maximize this space. It doesn't look like it gets a ton of sun because of the fence shade, but it actually gets really, really good sun in the afternoon over here. So I grew zinnias on this long strip last year. This year I had a ton of extra vegetable starts, so I decided to throw in some of my cherry pole tomatoes up along the fence posts here, and then I added in some extra bamboo poles zip tied to the fence poles for some support. So that'll be a similar growing method to the other cherry tomatoes I have. And then I've also got peppers, I've got some oregano, I've got more cherry tomato plants. We're gonna be drowning in cherry tomatoes this year, hopefully. And then some extra eggplants. Basically all of my tier 2 string vegetables I put in here, along with zinnias, and then some other random things that I just had and I did not know where to put in the garden. So I put them over here. Like I had an extra sedum plant, I had an extra coneflower that I put back here. I love zinnias and I love them for cut flowers, but I also love things that I can be not having to plant every year. So I love, love, love straight species echinacea coneflowers, purple coneflowers. And so I want those all around my yard. I love that they spread. I love that I can dig them up. Flies are bad today, and share them with people or move them elsewhere in my yard. So I've kind of just plopped them all around the yard to hopefully have them grow into beautiful mature plants over the years. Now, not a ton to report over here. This looks pretty similar to how it looked in the last video, I think. My potatoes are still over here. Honestly, I cannot wait until these are done. I have been battling potato beetles. I hate dealing with high maintenance pests. I will probably not grow potatoes again. Please remind me next year because they've just been kind of a pain this year, and I want to put my extra sunchoke starts in here. I've got 2 sunchokes in these containers. Sunchokes are also referred to as Jerusalem artichokes, although they are not a true artichoke. They're just called that. So it's a member of the sunflower family, and you can eat the tubers. They're like a highly nutrient dense food. A lot of people grow them in like survival garden circles, and they grow incredibly aggressively where I'm at. So that is why I have them in containers, because I don't know exactly where I want to be planting them long term in my garden yet. So I figured we would try to grow them in containers and then save some of the tubers over the winter this year, and then maybe make a decision about where we will plant them more permanently next year. So over here, we've got our asparagus. We've got a couple things I popped in between. I've got the strawberry plants going in here. I've got some sunflowers. I've got some random herbs I popped in just because I felt like I wanted to use every inch of space possible. I've got some cute little chamomile plants that I picked up when we were picking strawberries, and I thought they were so cute that I just popped a couple of them out of the ground. There were literally thousands, don't worry, and popped them into my beds here. They look really pretty. Oh my God, I just ate a bug. Sorry, a bug literally just flew directly into my mouth, down my throat as I was talking. It's disgusting, but I did eat it. But we will power on here. So we've got our garlic here, which I will probably be pulling in a couple of weeks. And then our parsley, which is flowering and is an excellent source of food for our black swallowtail caterpillars. So we've got our sweet potato starts in here, which will start to take over and really grow just as I am pulling out our garlic. I'm super excited to harvest all of this garlic. The original seed garlic came from my cousin Jimmy, who is a master at growing garlic. So I'm excited to see if my garlic heads are as big as his. A little bit more on our elevated garden bed here. So this one, I did a bed video all about how I put this together and then how I am planting my edible tuber bed here. I just talked about sunchokes a second ago. These are sunchokes here in the middle. They are my tallest. I'm probably going to Chelsea chop them like right here, so they'll start to branch out a little bit. Since this is already an elevated bed, I don't want them to be comically tall. I mean, they're gonna be pretty comically tall anyway, so I might just chop the tops off of them a little bit. And then I've got some taro root growing here, which is something I am super excited about. I'm going to be doing a video all about this once we get to the end of the season and I'm able to harvest these. I got some taro root bulbs from H Mart, and I got some taro root bulbs from an edible bulb store on Etsy. You can guess which ones were less expensive. The H Mart ones were dirt cheap, and I cannot tell a difference between the two of them and how they're growing. So I'm gonna be doing a video on that when it comes time to dig them up. If you're unfamiliar with taro root, it is edible. You can chop it up and fry it and bake it and air fry it and all sorts of things like that. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. And then another H Mart experiment was right up here. I am trying to grow grocery store ginger for the first time. This is our grocery store ginger plant that we've got growing here. And then I've just got a couple different flowers and stuff mixed in here to keep things nice and colorful. In my Greenstalk over here, I decided to seed most of this with strawberries this year. So I'm gonna be trying to overwinter strawberries and do a strawberry tower. I also have some flowers and other herbs, especially some more aggressive herbs in here that I don't want to be putting in the ground, and some of my remnants of my cooler season stuff. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep the Greenstalk up here or if I'm going to move it over to the patio because I really like how it looks on the patio. I'm going to keep it there for now and see how everything does and then move it if I need to. Now let's look at some of the landscaping up here. I've got this gorgeous oregano that I've actually pulled from this plant and planted all around the garden because I love its use as a practical ground cover, so I can actually use this as oregano. I love how much the bees seem to really love the flowers, and I love just how lush it looks very early in the season. you'll see that I have dill planted all around my yard because I love making pickles and I love using dill as a host plant for black swallowtail caterpillars. Over here, I did give in and buy another Meyer lemon tree, which is not cold hardy where we are, and I seem to kill them every year bringing them inside, but I am excited to try this one again. My mom does a really great job keeping hers going over the winter indoors. I did have one for a couple of years and then it fell completely victim to spider mites, so we will see how this year goes. And then over here we have our beautiful pond. So this area was a big focus area for us last year, and this year I have been putting a lot of work into it too. I have been updating some of the landscaping around it. I want this to be very much a wild looking and self-sustaining area long term. As you can see, some of our plants have gotten there already, like this mature coneflower just looks really gorgeous. I've got a catmint here that is on its second year. I've got this absolutely stunning lavender flowering, this beautiful, beautiful butterfly weed back here. But a lot of what this area is missing is ground cover because the weeds are bad here. So all around I've planted different types of ground cover. So I've planted some of that oregano. I put in a lot of creeping thyme over here that I'm hoping will fill out all along here. I've got some creeping phlox back here, and then I've added quite a few more native plants to this area too. So this is a goldenrod that I got. This is a shorter variety of goldenrod. I can't remember what type exactly it is, but once it flowers, I'll hopefully be able to get the ID. And then over here, I've got more lavender because I love, love, love lavender. And back here, I've added in some native grasses. I'm pretty sure that this is the Shenandoah switchgrass. And then over here, I've got a couple other native things. This is a taller straight species goldenrod. And then I've got some various native grasses that I've added in around here. So those with a keen eye will notice that I have some non-native grasses around my patio. I had 6 of these around our yard. I had 3 up here and 3 in the back. I learned that they are very invasive where we are, even though they're pretty, and I love their plumes in the winter for the interest that they provide. They are very invasive. So we want to take them out, right? But they are a pain to take out, and I only have limited time. So I committed to removing the 3 in the back this year. Next year, our big project will be removing the 3 up here and replacing them with some native grasses. So I'm really hoping that some of the native grasses that I've planted around the pond here will be sufficiently filled out enough by fall that I can do some transplants. Potentially next spring I'll have to wait to do those transplants, but I am hoping to be able to pull off of my existing plants back here. And then I've got a mature yarrow back here. I've got a Miss Kim lilac, which I know is not native, but I absolutely love. I saw one in my mom's yard and thought I have to have that. So eventually I would like that to be a taller kind of pruned topiary style. And same thing with this lilac plant here. I'd like that to be a taller centerpiece. And I was looking at my friend's pond recently, and she has a gorgeous type of elderberry that kind of drapes over her pond. And I do think long term I would like to replace the aster with one of those. She said she will give me a baby that I can plant, so I'm super excited about that. So looking forward to continuing to see this area fill out this year and next year, swapping out things for natives and just making it a lush and wild looking space. Over here, we've got an assortment of stuff. We've got some more coneflower, we've got more thyme, we've got some zinnias I plopped in. This is a golden ragwort that I'm really excited about adding this year, another native where we are. And we had an extra cattle panel trellis. So I decided, because I kind of dropped the ball on setting it up with my raised beds, I'll probably do that next year, but this year I hung it up on the vinyl fence here with these fence hooks, which are great for hanging things from vinyl fences without having to make holes and do any damage. And I've just seeded a bunch of runner beans all in the soil here. So hopefully this summer those will sprout and this will just be like a green wall, and it will look really, really pretty. And also green beans and different types of runner beans are excellent nitrogen fixers for the soil. So I'm hoping that that will help give these plants a boost as well. Over here, we have some more new things I've added this year. This is another native foxglove here, which is really gorgeous. We have one in the front yard. The flowers are stunning and look really lovely in arrangements. This is one of our established black-eyed Susans. And then we've got a native perennial sunflower here, which will spread like crazy if you're not careful. Luckily, I like things that spread like crazy if I have them where I want them. And then back here starts our fruit area. So we've got several blueberry plants back here that are different levels of maturity. Some we put in a couple years ago, some we've just put in this year. And then I've got catmint interspersed between them, thinking that eventually the blueberry bushes will be tall enough that the catmint will stay a little bit low and the blueberry bushes will be up above them. And this is the whole berry patch that we put in last year. Now this has proven to be, weeding this is like the complete biggest pain in the ass chore that I have for this summer. I have already realized how overrun with bindweed this area is going to be because it is a freshly sheet mulched area. Now we killed off all this grass last fall and well, we killed off like half of it. And then this spring we did the other half. So next year, I think I'm going to take the strategy of just wood chipping this entire area as thick as humanly possible because that's really the most effective thing to do to smother out bindweed unless you're going to spray it, which I do not want to do. So we can walk on our little path back here. We have some raspberries that we dug up from the neighbor's yard here along the fence. And then we've got some more little blueberry bushes. We have a daisy plant here. And longer term, this is going to be just a berry patch because these blueberry bushes will be much larger and they will need the space. But for now, they're so small that I decided to put some of my extra tomatoes back here. These were kind of some of my reject tomatoes, but I put them back here and I can't believe that these might be some of my best performing tomatoes so far. They may be the ones that have the ripe tomatoes first. They look the healthiest, they're growing the fastest, which is really great to see. So I'll have these growing up pole style, just like the ones up in the raised beds. And then since we have all of this extra space from not needing the paths back to access the blueberry bushes on either side, I threw in an extra cucumber vine, and then we've got some random winter squash plants back here that I just got the seeds for free, and I figured if they grow, they grow. If they don't, they don't. I'll be fine with it. And then all of these back here are sunflowers. So I thought that would look really lovely having the back of this garden kind of like bookended with a wall of sunflowers. So I may need to put some support back there for them eventually, but for now they're growing really well, and knock on wood, the groundhogs have left them alone. I think this is a little bit farther up in the yard for the groundhogs to venture, so that's been successful so far. These are extra bean plants that I threw up here because I didn't have any other space for them. And then this is the other side of the berry patch, which has our raspberries, which, yay, we are actually getting raspberries on the first year because we dug up some mature plants from our neighbor's yard that she shared with us. And then we just popped right in the soil and they took over. So my long-term plan is to have this be like a wall, an L-shaped wall of raspberries, because yes, I know they do take over, bookended by some blackberries back here as well. So later on, a lot of this area will be taken up by berries, but for now we have the space, so I just figured I'd throw in extra stuff. Back here is where I'm just kind of starting to let things go wild and take over. This is a mini Joe Pye weed. We have an absolutely massive catmint here that I really need to remind myself next spring, when this starts coming up, I need to dig this bad boy up and separate it because it is just getting insanely big. And then we have common milkweed and phlox back here. Now what I will probably do next spring is when this phlox is starting to sprout, I think I'm gonna dig this up and move it, separate it, and just let this all become common milkweed. If you've ever grown common milkweed, you know that it is an incredibly aggressive spreader. This is not like the swamp milkweed or the butterfly weed where it has more of a shrubby growth pattern. If you plant common milkweed, you need to never want to not have common milkweed there. So I planted it back here thinking like, yeah, I'll have a little milkweed patch back here. It is very aggressive. It will pop up in the grass. It is just, you can control its spread a little bit by cutting off the seed heads after it blooms and cutting off all the pods that form, but it will still spread by runners. It is very aggressive, but it is worth it because the monarchs absolutely love it. And as I learned from a friend of mine while touring their garden, it is a good idea to Chelsea chop these. So I'll show you guys what I mean. Where did I chop? Okay, I Chelsea chopped this one right here, so that it would sprout 2 separate ones here and be less floppy, because I really, really hate it when common milkweed gets floppy and it gets into the grass here and it just doesn't look very neat. So I did chop a lot of these down probably about a month ago, and it has started branching out, which I'm hoping will keep it from flopping over too much this summer, because I don't want to have to stake it to keep it out of the grass. Now, other than our 2 extremely sad looking cherry trees, which I have to figure out what is going on with them, all of our fruit trees we planted are looking amazing. This is our peach tree. I pruned it for the first time this spring. This is our persimmon back here. We have 2 pawpaw trees, which are looking really great. I do have these with some tulle wrapped around them because they're still so low to the ground that the groundhogs were just really having a field day eating the foliage off of these little whips. So this one, they ate that pawpaw down to the quick. This one I managed to get covered before they got to it. So this one is definitely more mature and has more leaves and is looking a lot healthier. But eventually these trees will get pretty tall, and so the longer term plan is to remove this tree here, just some weed tree that is just on our property line, and have the pawpaws and the persimmon tree be like the main trees back here. And then we have, of course, our redbud that we planted. One of the first things we did when we moved in was plant this redbud and this dogwood. And then also this whole area back here, we would like to eventually be wood chipped. So from the berry patch here all the way back here, we would like to wood chip all of this and kind of just make this whole area grass free. And then longer term, this back here will be a nice shade garden. So I've already had to move a couple things around because the redbud is such a prolific grower here. It is a native tree, so it is getting really big and it's actually providing some shade. So I've moved a couple things that I had planted under it elsewhere in the yard and put a couple more shade loving plants back here, like this bleeding heart. And this is the first year that I have wood chipped this area instead of using a more traditional mulch, just because the cost. It is so much cheaper to wood chip, and it does the job that I need it to do. This is like a whole perennial garden where I put a lot of my clearance perennials and propagations that I snag. I also put some rhubarb back here. I have a couple hydrangeas back here. I have some mountain mint, which is one of my new favorite perennials. This will really take off next year. It has a really gorgeous smell to it, a really strong minty smell, and it produces these really lovely flowers that are really desirable for pollinators. Over here I have a New York ironweed, which is super tiny right now, but will get very tall with gorgeous wild looking flowers. And same right here next to it with a goldenrod that I planted. So this area I'm just really hoping will be taken over eventually with native plants, and then I can let this be less manicured and just a little bit more wild. This lavender is one of my favorites. Look how intense the colors are on these flowers. They are so much more intense than the other lavender flowers I have. And since I am sometimes unorganized, I have no idea what the variety of this is. I thought they were all the same kind. Maybe they're not. And then I popped another swamp milkweed back here. This is great for the monarchs, but also the bees cannot get enough of it. It is just constantly covered in bees having the pollen from these cute little flowers. So that is about it for our Maryland Zone 7 mid-June garden tour. Everything is really taking off. I know I rambled a lot for this one, but I just feel like there's so much that I'm excited to share with people, and there's so much that I want to document to look back on in a couple months so I can see, you don't see the day-to-day progress and growth, but when you look back on some of these videos as a gardener, you can really see the changes in your garden. So if you made it through this whole video, thanks for sticking with me. Stay tuned for more videos coming up. I'm gonna do more seed saving videos, more garden maintenance videos. It's summer, so that means I have a lot of ideas for stuff that I want to film. And until then, happy planting.